My name is Griffin Lookville. I just passed the PL-100 a few weeks ago, and I wanted to share some things that I learned in that process so that you can be successful on exam day. We have 40 practice problems here that we are going to go through. Really, the objective of this is to walk you through my thought process of when I'm reading these problems, what I'm thinking, and what is driving me to my answer. We got a ton of really good questions. These are ones that I handpicked through my practice problems that I was doing for you. This way you can see problems that are going to be similar to the ones on your exam. I can tell you and promise you that these are going to be super beneficial. This is going to be a little bit longer video, so go ahead and stick to the end. Let's get into it. So here we are, question one, and question one is going to be, your company makes use of Power Automate and Power Apps. You have been asked to create an AI model using AI Builder that examines client surveys regarding products. Which of the following is the AI model you should create? So this is going to begin to look at the different AI models that Azure AI offers, and this is something you could definitely get asked on your exam, so let's go ahead and work through these. So what is this question actually asking? We are trying to determine which model would be best for handling customer surveys. Now, customer surveys are going to be fairly the same from each one. They're going to be the same questions. It might be a certain form or something of that nature. And so this is going to begin to direct me to a form processing model. So see here, it's not going to be a prediction model. We're not classifying. There's no camera for object detection. So this is going to be C, a form processing model. Question number two, you're designing a new multi-page Canvas app. The app connects to an outside data source to load tabular data. All screens within the Canvas app must access the data after the app is loaded. So you want to make sure that data retrieval from the source is kept to a minimum. You need to configure the use of a suitable data store. So we have a Canvas app here, and this is going to have several different screens. Now, in order to store data across several different screens, there's going to be a couple of things that this is going to point us to, and that is going to be a collection or a global variable. A context variable is going to be dependent on the screen, and an environment variable is something a little bit different than what we're talking about here regarding Canvas apps. So a collection and a global variable are going to be what you need in order to store information or different data across screens. So question three here is part of a 2-question series, and this first question is going to say, you've created multiple apps in an unmanaged solution. You are required to move the apps to a different environment, and in that environment, this solution needs to allow for the components to be added, amended, renewed, removed, deleted, etc. You need to use the current solution type, and you make the use of a managed solution. Does this action achieve your objective? So you're going to get a lot of questions involving what is the type of solution you should use here, and you really have two main ones. That's managed and unmanaged. A managed solution in one sentence is going to be something where the components and everything in that solution is locked down. It cannot be touched. They can't be updated. They cannot be added, deleted, removed. The solution is as it is, and you can't make any updates to it. Where an unmanaged solution is the opposite of that, where you can add components, you can edit the components that are in the solution, you can delete them, etc. So if we are looking to move components to an environment that in that new environment needed to be added, amended, renewed, etc., then we're going to be looking for an unmanaged solution. So in this question, making use of a managed solution does not achieve our objective. In question two here, you can see you need to make use of an unmanaged solution. This would achieve our objective. An unmanaged solution is going to allow us to do that, not a managed one. So question four here, all app creators at your company have their own Dataverse environment. You're in the process of creating a Canvas app in yours, and you need to make the app and all your adaptations available to another app maker who will be carrying on adapting the app or editing the app. You also need to make sure you'll be able to resume work on the app when you come back. Which of the following actions should you take? So here is another question following up about solutions, and considering we want these components to be edited where they're going, we're going to be looking for unmanaged. So part A says you should consider exporting the app with all adaptations as an unmanaged solution. I'm going to say yes. B, you should consider publishing the app to the production environment. No. C is just a managed solution, which would be no. You should consider publishing app to a staging environment. No, that's not going to be right. So we're looking for A here as an unmanaged solution. So now you're an app maker. You are currently creating a new Canvas app. App users will include people who have diminished or no sight. You are identifying methods that will hide content from seeing users and show them to the screen readers. Which of these should we apply? There are a couple different questions involving the accessibility of your app and how using a screen reader, which just takes the components in your Canvas app and reads them aloud to, say, a user who is blind or has bad vision. So we're looking for something that is going to be seen by a screen reader, something that's on the screen but isn't detectable by the human eye by looking at it. So we could have multiple options here. A is configure the color and the related properties as transparent. That is going to hide it from a viewer, but is not going to hide it from the screen reader. Set X and Y, or the placement of the property for the control, to be on screen. No, if it was on screen, then it would be able to be seen by people, so that's not right. And then we have C, set the width and height to 1, or D, set the size to 10. If the size were 10, it's going to be viewable. The one that's tricky is C, set the height to 1. But this is correct, so we're going to be looking for AC, but let me explain. So the Microsoft docs explicitly say that in order to achieve this, you can set the height and width of a component to 1. Now, technically, this is still on the screen, but it is going to be one singular pixel, which, if you wanted to be nitpicky, you could argue that a person viewing the screen could see that, but this is explicitly given in the docs, and even though it might be tricky, this is going to allow it to be seen by screen readers, but not seen by people viewing the screen. I hope this makes sense. Let's go ahead and move on to number 6. So your company makes use of Microsoft 365, Microsoft Azure, and the Power Platform for app development. Your company has a sister company that has the same Microsoft, SharePoint, and Azure configurations, but they have their own tenant. You've been asked to build a mobile app that must also be made available to the sister company. The sister company cannot be able to make changes to any of the app components. So we're looking for something that's not going to be able to make changes, that's going to have it locked down. How would you achieve this? So navigate to the Manage Properties page and set the value of Allow Customizations option to True. No, we want it locked down. So let's go ahead. It's going to be B. And then export the app as a managed solution. We want it locked down. I'm really trying to hammer this home early here. I believe this is the last of our managed or unmanaged solutions. We might have one more, but it's really important you know these. You're going to get several questions involving solutions. So question 7, you're creating an app that must be inclusive to users with different disabilities. You want to make sure that the app adheres to Microsoft's accessibility and performance guidelines. Which checker should you use? So ultimately, you just need to look at this and say, what are we checking? Are we checking the app? Are we checking the solution? Are we checking in a portal? We are checking an app. A solution checker is going to be something different, which you might get asked on your exam, but in this question, it's relating to an app checker, specifically the accessibility section of your app. So this is going to be A. You store client data in a Microsoft SharePoint list. You are building a Power Automate flow that triggers when new data is added to the list. Which of the following should you use as the trigger of your flow? Okay, so this is going to explicitly tell us what we want the trigger to be. We want the trigger to be when new data is added to a SharePoint list. Okay, so now we're just trying to find the option that is going to best match that. A, you should use the when an item is created trigger. My first impression is that is beginning to sound pretty good. You should use the for a selected file trigger. No, that wouldn't make much sense. You should use the when a file is classified by a content understanding model. No, that doesn't make sense. You should use the when an item is created or modified trigger. Now this one could be tricky because if the statement above said triggers when a new data is added or updated to the list, then I would say it's D. But because we're not talking about any sort of update or modified by, then I'm going to lean towards this being A, created. These are the kind of questions I personally do not like. It wants you to find the underlined portion of a statement and tell you if that underlined portion is correct or incorrect. And if it is incorrect, which one it should actually be. But let's go ahead and just read this. You create a custom table in Microsoft Dataverse. Okay, you can use. So what do we use to create a Microsoft table, or excuse me, a table in Microsoft Dataverse? So my initial thoughts of the Power Platform Admin Center, that's going to be where you handle things like licenses, maybe users or environments and different things. It's not going to be involved in the actual components of an app. That's going to be done in the Maker portal. So I'm going to say if we have anything that uses the Admin Center, that is incorrect. So let's go ahead and cross off A, cross off B, C, the Solution Explorer or Power Apps Maker portal. That sounds right to me. The Solution Explorer or SQL. We don't really have anything related to SQL, and same with E. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the best solution for this is C. So moving on to question 10, we are about a quarter of the way through all of our problems here. And number 10 says you have two Dataverse entities, which are tables. You have been instructed to use a many-to-many relationship between the two entities. Which of the following is true when creating many-to-many relationships? So there's different types of relationships you can have on tables. You can have many-to-many, you can have one-to-many relationships. And so let's go ahead and work through these options and see which ones apply to many-to-many relationships. So A, no explicit hierarchy exists. This is true for many-to-many relationships. If there is a one-to-many, then that one, say an account can have multiple cases, that account is considered the parent entity of the cases in that relationship, because like one parent having several kids, so to speak, or the child. And so because this is many-to-many, there's no explicit hierarchy. All entities can be used to create many-to-many relationships. That is actually not true. There's certain tables in Microsoft that can only be used in one-to-many relationships. I believe things like activities, for example. C, you have to configure lookup columns. Lookup columns are going to be for one-to-many relationships. So specifically, if a case can only have one account, back to our example, then that account is going to be stored in a lookup on the case. So if it were a many-to-many relationship, there would be subgrids on both tables. There's not going to be any lookups. So then D, a relationship table stores the data that associates the tables. By process of elimination, this is going to be A and D, but this is actually true. If you have a many-to-many relationship, there's a sort of invisible table, so to speak, that actually stores that relationship data for all of your many-to-many relationships. Question 11 is going to bring us to another multi-part question. So this is part A. You are an app creator for your company, and you want to make use of a Power Platform tool that will send an email to a manager whenever a certain event occurs. So we're wanting to create an automatically sent email. What achieves this objective? You can make use of a Canvas app. No, you're not going to use a Canvas app to automatically send that. Not to spoil it, but we're looking for a Power Automate to do this. Part B says use Power Virtual Agents to create a bot in order to send an email. Now this one might be tricky, especially for beginners, because a bot, it sounds like it's conversation, things like emails, but we're looking to send an email. We're not looking for the manager to speak to someone to get information. We're just looking to send an email. So Power Virtual Agents is not going to do that as well. You can make use of a Power Automate. Yeah, this is going to be what we are looking for. Does this achieve our objective? Yes, it does. So you want to include charts in your app without using Power BI. Which of the following charts should you use? Now, I tend to think about it like this, and maybe this is too simple, but Power BI is a tool that is going to be used to create some really detailed and honestly complex data analytics and different visualizations. And so my approach to this is, okay, we don't want to use Power BI. We don't want to use the complicated stuff. What is not complicated? So which of the following charts can be used? When I read these, I think, A, pie chart, that doesn't seem that complicated. Or a line chart, I can picture what that looks like in my head. That doesn't seem that complicated. A bar chart. A tree map seems like that might be a little more involved. A ribbon chart seems like it might be a little more involved. A scattered chart seems like that would be pretty complicated looking chart. And so I would go ahead and select A, B, and C, and that is correct. These are going to be able to be used in Power Apps. You don't need Power BI in order to add pie charts, line charts, and bar charts to your dashboards. You would need Power BI for tree maps, ribbon charts, and scatter charts. So question 13, you are building a Canvas app that allows users to track time on mobile devices. You add a sign-in screen, a screen to record the user's time entries for the week, and a screen to amend the user's recent time records. Okay, so we have 3 screens. Users will be issued ID cards that include the user's name, a profile photo, and a QR code for the user's employee number. Okay, so we're storing 3 things. You need to make sure that the user's employee number is read into the app. Which of the following control should you use? So this question is a perfect example of giving you a ton of information and then asking a really simple question. So let's go ahead and just read that what is actually asking for again. We are looking for something that is going to read users' employee numbers into the app. And so we have sentences here that are unrelated to that question. Let's go ahead and look. Users will be issued ID cards that include the user's name, a profile photo, and a QR code for the user's employee number. All right, so something that's going to read employee numbers in the app. These employee numbers are going to be QR codes. This is going to direct us to C. You should add the barcode scanner. Things like A, B, and D might be needed for the other components that it's talking about here, but you need to make sure you're actually answering the specific question it asks. Microsoft loves to give you confusing questions, give you way more information than you need to complicate it, but it's saying, hey, how do we read the employee number? And in the sentence before it says, the employee number is a QR code. So that's going to fairly straightforward direct you to C, add the barcode scanner. So question 14 here, part A, you have been creating and deploying dashboards that will only be used by sales representatives. The dashboards will show the following info. You have previous sales pipelines, open cases, and major wins in the last 30 days. You need to make sure that the detailed information presented in dashboards can be seen by the sales representative. You create a single stream dashboard. Does this action achieve your objective? Okay, so there's 2 different types of dashboards, and that's going to be single stream or multi-stream dashboards. A single stream dashboard is going to be a dashboard that only looks at one table, only looks at one entity. Now it can pull in lots of information about, say, cases and several different views, but it's only going to be able to look at cases. A multi-stream dashboard could look at accounts, cases, and leads and opportunities, so etc. So what is our dashboard trying to achieve? It's trying to look at the sales pipeline, which could be leads, opportunities, quotes, invoices. It's trying to look at open cases, and it's trying to look at major wins. That would suggest opportunities in the last 30 days, 1 opportunities. So considering we're trying to look at several things, this is not going to be able to be done with a single stream dashboard. So I'm going to say B, no it's not. But part 2 of this question is you create a multi-stream dashboard. This is going to achieve our objective. So question, a company uses Power Automate to streamline different business processes, and you need to use AI Builder to look at custom reviews for your company's products. In which order should you create an AI model? You really just need to understand and think step by step what is needed for an AI model. You can't just pull an AI model out of thin air and throw it in your flow, right? The AI model needs to be created, trained, and added to the flow. So the first step when I read these 4 options is going to be connect data to your model. Data is going to be needed so that way it can then be trained, which is step 2. You cannot publish or use a model without it being trained. There are some out-of-the-box models, but that is not what it's talking about here. It's wanting to look at something, to look at customer reviews. That's going to be needed to be built and be custom. So you need to connect the data, then you need to train the model, and then you can't add it to your flow. You now need to publish the model. Just like many things, it needs to be published before it can be used in Dynamics. And then after it's connected, trained, published, then it can be used in your flow. Question 16 here, a company uses Power Apps in a Microsoft Dataverse environment, and users are divided into 2 groups. The company is trying to do some testing here and decides that each group of users will try a version of a new developed Canvas app for 1 week and then switch to the other version of the app for the following week. You need to manage the app creation. What should you do? So this is what's beginning to sound like A/B testing, and this is going to be more of like a open-ended question. Okay, how should we do this? So let's go ahead and work through these answers. We have A, create one app with 2 different version notes. I don't really see how version notes would play a role into having different apps for us for different users, so let's go ahead and cross that off. Create 2 apps with the same name. Let's go ahead and just store that for a second, because I think that could be getting us in the right direction. See, we have create one app with 2 different version numbers. You cannot have an app with different version numbers. Once you save or publish, that's automatically updated for you. You can't have version 17 published and version 18 of an app published. You can have version 18 and then restore it back to version 17, but now no one can use 18. So you can't have 2 versions of the same app. So that cross off C. And then D is create 2 apps with different app names. That to me sounds better than B. I think, one, I don't think you can have apps that are named the exact same thing. But plus, think about it like conceptually, if we're trying to test these different things and they were named the exact same thing, that would be confusing to generate results. So we're going to need different names on our app. So I'm going to go with D, and that's the correct answer here. Question 17, you create apps in an unmanaged solution and you need to choose the correct solution type for each situation. Which type of solutions should you create? So here is another unmanaged, managed solution question. Let's go ahead and crush these out. So edit existing components of the solution. So again, if we want it to be able to be edited, that's going to be unmanaged. Add new components to the solution. That is not locked down, that we need that to be unmanaged. And then export the solution. Now, technically, you can export an unmanaged or a managed solution. But 99% of the time, if Microsoft is asking you this question, they are looking for a managed solution. Managed solutions are what the docs highly, highly recommend you use to export. And in the real world, that's going to be what you're doing most of the time, say on a client project, is exporting and dealing with managed solutions. So question 18, you are an app designer for a hotel. The hotel wants an app to help keep the housekeeping staff schedule their rooms. You need to create a new environment for the app. Where should you create an environment for the hotel? We kind of mentioned this earlier, but environments and different licenses and all these things are going to be handled in the Power Platform Admin Center. That's going to be where you can create and spin up new environments and add users to them so that you can build, say, either in dev or testing or your prod environments. That's going to be handled in Power Platform Admin Center. So we're looking for A here. All right, question 19. A company delivers products to multiple neighborhoods. The company creates a Canvas app connected to Microsoft Dataverse. The app tracks neighborhoods to see where the delivery volume is the highest. Okay, so we have these things called neighborhoods. Let's see what this means. Drivers enter delivery information on the delivery table, and depot staff must enter information on the pickup table. Okay, so we have 2 tables. There's some kind of relationship. Each entity form contains a neighborhood field that is based on a shared list across both forms. You need to create the neighborhood field. Okay, so my initial thoughts are going to be neighborhoods could be either records and relationships through lookups or be an option set. And after looking at the answers, we only have option set related answers. So let's go ahead and cross lookups off the table. And so that's going to leave us with either A or C. B and D wouldn't work because we need them to be a shared list across the different tables. Text would just mean they're typing them in. That wouldn't be it. So we have A or C, local or global. And this is going to have to be a global option set. And that's because this is going across multiple entities. Global option sets are going to be something that are outside of tables where you can say, hey, these are the options. And then when you create a neighborhood field on your pickup entity, you can say, hey, have this neighborhood field look at and use this option set. So you can do that for both tables and looking at them. If you used a local option set, say a neighborhood changed, which this is suggesting that happens maybe more regularly. That way, if you were using local, you would have to go into each community field and update them. It's not using a shared list. So this is going to be done with C, a global option set. Question 20 here. A company is rolling out several Power apps to different business units across international operations. The apps must be managed through an application lifecycle management or ALM solution so that the user experience is consistent. All changes to the app must be tracked and documented in one location. Okay. You need to create an application for the apps. Which 2 tools should you use? So again, this is beginning to feel like we have a little bit more information than we need for what the actual question is what it's really asking. And so we're looking for something to help us manage our ALM as well as revert previous changes and versions of the app. And so that's going to be done in just 2 of these 5 things. The first one is going to be Microsoft Azure DevOps or Microsoft ADO. You shouldn't get many questions about ADO on your exams, as this is not really related to Power Platform, but it is related to application lifecycle management. And ADO is going to be where project teams can manage everything that they're building on the app, all the different components, all the different client asks, as well as all the different testing that was done. All of these things are going to be involved in the ALM of an app, and so that's going to be done in ADO. So A is definitely something we're looking for here. B, Microsoft Visual Studio. That doesn't sound, I mean, maybe, but that I really don't care for that answer. Lifecycle services, I'm not even too sure what that means. AppSource is a valuable resource, but is not really related to what it's asking here. And then E, Common Data Service. So I would go with AE. That is the correct answer, and that's kind of my thought process of how I got to that. So that is going to conclude our first part of our 2-part series on PL-100 questions. I hope you're enjoying these. I hope you're seeing kind of how I'm thinking through these problems, and I want you to be able to do the same on your test day so that you can be successful. If you have any questions, be sure to put them down in the comments down below, and go ahead and check out part 2 here.